Hello, you are listening to the award-winning To Hull and Back podcast, proudly sponsored by Old Zoological Bar and Kingfisher Fish and Chips in Hull. I'm your host, Nathaniel, and tonight I'm joined by Joe and Will. Volter out! Volter out!
Woo!
Finally!
Woo!
Hurrah! Woo!
Walter
Okay.
in!
No. Dawson out. Dawson out. Oh, no. Yeah. So, the big news, of course, we will talk about the Sheffield Wednesday match. We will talk about the Middlesbrough match, and we will look ahead to the Blackburn match next week. But the main news, as we've been hoping for the last few weeks, and I'm sure most of our commenters and listeners have been hoping for as well, I don't think I've ever been so, it's not like delight or glee. Of course, actually, maybe it is partially to see a manager get sacked, but I think it was such a burden. It was so toxic. And normally when someone is that bad, the owner is relatively sensible and you just sack them. But other than maybe the poor run we had under McCann that one time, we didn't sack him then. But maybe with COVID and the finances, we couldn't afford to. But now we can afford to. We've got more money. And we can't really talk about everything, but there are rumours about how much the players didn't like him as well as the fans, and the results weren't good enough. There wasn't any possible way he could have stayed on, was there, Joe?
Well, for Adjan, there definitely was. If it wasn't for the fans shouting Tim down and into the arms of his family at the end of the game and all through that second half, put it this way, if Adjan wasn't at that game, Tim Walter would still be in a job after Middlesbrough, or at least going into Middlesbrough, depending on whether we got pumped 8-0. Who knows? I thought it would take Middlesbrough 9, Hull City 0 to sack Tim Walter before the end of January, to be honest. But I'm glad he's gone. Now he's gone, I will say this, and I didn't say it at the time because I didn't want to come across as negative and whatever, but I've come across as negative enough anyway. So here we go. Tim rubbed me up the wrong way from the start.
Oh,
you beat me to it, Will.
He didn't come across as like any good, and that started. It started with two things. One in Turkey, where we joined them at Riva for a day. He came down. Well, all the players came down. We got taken for a walk around the facility, and we only caught a glimpse of Tim as we all came back in because he'd gone down to the bar to get a drink. Didn't stay to talk to us or say hello, really. He just sort of shook a few hands, then cleared off. And then at Donny away in pre-season. It's nothing to do with the performance either before anyone starts shouting.
Friendlies do not count.
The friendlies do not count at all. Coming off the bus, there's little kids, can't be any older than 7, shouting of Tim, and even just like a wave or a smile. You think, go on, go over, they're kids. And he just sort of, he steps off the coach and walks in. Every single other player, if they're shouted, would stop and did stop. Seri, Sean, Alfie, Louis, etc., all stopped. Will's disappeared.
Yeah, I was going to make a comment about Will doing his best Marvin Malem impression and going missing. I'm sure he'll be back in a moment, but yeah, Tim Walter.
Anyway, Tim then, and then I'm not saying I wanted him to fail, because that would have meant the club failed, and Tim's success was our success. But it felt from very early that we knew this wasn't going to work, and I was willing to give him time and see it turn round, hopefully. But after Pompey, lost me. And my suspicions about Tim being a poor manager and not being very good with people. Like I said to you, Nathaniel, before we started, that I spoke to a lot of the players on the first day, and they all seemed like, they said, he's a really nice bloke, quite a family man, looking forward to getting into the tactical side. And you said that if you're peeing people off, on day one, then you really are poor. So it must have started day 2, 3. But there's been all sorts of rumours of discontent with the players.
Still not taken. We're not even halfway through the season yet, and that's still quite a quick time to cause this sort of upset, which I think isn't just like an argument where you've had a misunderstanding or difficulties. That must be, if it's this happened this early into his reign, must be because of him and his style and being stubborn, which I think has been maybe not tactically stubborn like McCann with the 4-3-3, but perhaps stubborn in terms of like what Mason Burstow said, he didn't want to.
Yes,
the
that's all we need to go off. What Mason Burstow, Regan Slater, and Casey Palmer have said in that ITV interview pre-game before Middlesbrough. Casey Palmer just looked so desperate to call Tim Walter the worst manager he's ever played under, call him a C-bomb, every name under the sun, whatever. But he stayed professional. Good on him.
Chump.
Regan Slater, when he was quizzed by Mike about how he was after being subbed off at half time against Derby and going 1-to-1s aren't really the manager's style. What?
It's nonsense. That's got to be like your communication with the players. They're the people who you have to get across to. So long as you get your message across to the players, everything else falls in place, and you'll get results. But if you alienate them, you've got no one at all. Because even Adjan tries to do his best to keep you in the job longer than he should have done. Says, if you lose tonight, I will still back you. But if the players don't play for you, as they didn't against Sheffield Wednesday, it was a very poor performance. You could have been 4 or 5 down the first 30 minutes. You've got no hope.
And Burstow's interview, again, he talks about senior players trying to speak to the manager but getting laughed out the room. Talks about himself saying to the manager, look, I've not had much game time recently. I felt like I've been training well. What can I do to make myself a better player and make you pick me? So when he's not giving players advice and what have you, then it's always going to be tough to endear yourself to a squad of new players when they've not got someone at the top uniting them in. And look, the players, Mason Burstow, the way he was speaking, seems like the players have stuck together really well. And he said at the end of his interview, Dawes and Erbil are 2 people who they felt like they could talk to in there. And I think Julian Hubner and Filip Topalovic were nicer people than I thought Tim was. But it's whether it's because they're wedded to Tim so much they only felt like they could go to Dawes and Erbil, or whether they felt like they had to go to Tapper or Julian to get to Tim. They just seemed like such a disconnect, and that was clear in results, and that's clear now that he's gone.
Will, would you say that, of course, the results haven't been good, but perhaps in a sort of tough period, especially with some off-field discourse as well, that it's actually Tim Walter's character that was his worst trait?
Absolutely. It's what he did off the field more than on the field, I think, that really rubs me the wrong way, particularly slagging off the fans and then not apologising for it, kind of pushing on with it. All the stuff you hear off the field, rumours, some of it is true, but some of it's also rumours, but a lot of people did not like Tim's way of going about things, and it kind of showed, and he's rightly no longer here.
Yeah, simple as. Probably Portsmouth, maybe Oxford, he should have been gone after that. I mean, it is wild, and maybe we should have a look at why we think Adjan said what he did, sort of timeline on Wednesday. He did the interview with BBC Radio Humberside beforehand, explicitly saying, and of course he put himself in a corner by doing the interview at all.
He should never have done the interview in the first place at that time, because what can he say?
He can't say, I'm going to sack him tonight.
You can't criticise him, and if you get behind him, you couldn't look an idiot.
Yeah, so he said, if we lose tonight, which of course we did, I will not sack him. So, Joe, how would you interpret that? Do you think he was just trying to motivate Walter? Did he change his mind? Was he always lying? What do you think?
I think it's hard to tell just because Adrian has been so far away from anything that's gone on at this football club in the last year or so. There's such... I spoke about a disconnect between the manager and the players. There's a disconnect between what goes on at this football club now and Adrian Ilagella at the top.
Yes.
If this is the way he runs a business, then I have no idea how he's successful. Well,
there's some political ways of getting into that, but it's probably not a good idea on this evening.
Yeah, not this evening to talk about President Erdogan and his press crackdown. Let's leave that for another day. Let's leave that for another day. But you can't sustain a business by you being at the top doing other things with Fenerbahce and then just hoping that Tan isn't supposedly doing something allegedly. Which we can only go off the rumours in Turkish press for that. No comment any longer. And when who's meant to be your representative departs for whatever reason, you might have to step in yourself and see what's going on. Because I mentioned before we started recording, surely people like Mertan, Mustafa, Berry, people who are at the training ground every day and report to Adrian, they must have seen some of this that's going on. The reported disagreements between players and staff. What Baz described as the sidelining of some non-playing staff. Surely those guys would have picked up on that, who Adrian calls his brain team. Surely if they're not seeing that and not reporting back to him about that, then collectively there's such a lack of brain.
Just no brain at all. I don't know why we call them the brain team. I mean,
well, Adrian coined it in his press conference, didn't he? And yeah. Bentos mentions Reading here. I didn't notice it at the time, but Baz brought up a really good point in his article. He wrote that Tim got particularly angry in his interview after the Reading game, and the club opted not to air any of it, which I didn't pick up on at the time because they just put clips of Nathan Tinsdale out. But when it's mentioned, you think, oh my God, was it
what was
really?
Yeah, I mean, I do remember at that point, various places, of course, when we didn't have a lot of signings as well, various times during pre-season, we thought that Volta would be justified in resigning anyway. Of course, he's been pushed out now. But, I mean, I'd say for the first 5 games without a win, that was dodgy. Even when we won the games, you could make very good arguments that perhaps we were lucky to beat Stoke and QPR. I think Cardiff, perhaps we deserved that one, but still went 1-0 down then. And then, of course, even the results, we haven't been battered other than the Norwich game, but we didn't see an improvement. In fact, we've probably regressed over the course of the season. And, I mean, Will, of course, you've been around a little longer than Joe and I have, but for me, I think he probably is the most unlikable manager I've had or I've seen at Hull City.
Same for me.
Is the same for you as well?
Probably. We've had poor managers before, managers with poor records. But I think a lot of them from memory didn't really go about it the way that Tim ever did. Tim never seemed to really be interested in knowing anyone, sort of getting on with everyone. But
and you just can't do that in the EFL, can you? You have got to sort of band together.
Then why do you come to England when the aim is to get to the Premier League, which is the most watched league in the world, where you have to do the most media?
Phil Paterson was bad, and he probably wasn't. But in terms of as a character, I think Tim's probably worse.
I mean,
I disagree with that. I love Nigel Pearson.
Yeah,
he's an absolute
naming lots of bad managers. I mean, like there's been Mike Phelan again. That's a very difficult situation. Slutsky was very likable, just pretty similar with Volta. out of his depth, Volta out of his depth, but didn't.
Shotter and Slutsky are exactly the same, right? Both come across as really nice people you'd love to go for a pint with.
Not having your manager of a football club.
But yeah, but just so totally out of their depth.
Yeah, and Volta out of his depth, that was more because he didn't even know he was drowning. Yeah, he didn't want to accept the fact that maybe it wasn't going to work. And I think you can point to it now. Obviously, he's got a worse squad than he would have done at Hamburg, but he didn't get promoted with Hamburg. You could argue that his system didn't work there, and it's certainly not going to work in England when you've got, worse players in that division, and you're not sort of going for the attributes, because just that togetherness and fight determination is what Oxford had to beat us, and what Plymouth and Portsmouth had to take points off, because they don't have quality players really, and you just didn't want to accept that. Bentos' Shotter was an absolute misery. Yeah, perhaps, but still liked him. But Volta.
Just on the squad quickly, Nathaniel, I can remember Adjan's presser at Riva when they were in Turkey, and he said to the gathering of Turkish press that was there, his brain team collected all sorts of players, and Tim turned down 80 to 90% of them because he didn't think they'd fit his system properly. So I'm not going to excuse the brain team here, because the recruitment for the most part has been absolutely scattergun and shocking.
Yes.
Even though we have had hits in Philogene, Delap, Carvalho, etc. If Tim made them do more work to get these players that we got by the end of the window, and they were supposedly the best ones we scouted for his system, why were we so crap?
Yeah. Why are all the players look like they don't fit the system? Yeah. We'll go on.
And why? And obviously, I'm not excusing the brain team here, but you think if it's a different manager who's not so wedded and can think, right, I can mold this player to be like this because he's got X, Y, and Z, would the transfer window have looked a little bit different for me? Yes, absolutely. There wouldn't be a panic late in the day trying to get wingers. There wouldn't be the 3 goalkeepers that we've got in Rushworth and Rachopi coming in on top of Panda necessarily. But you wonder how much of it, when you put it like that, how much of it is brain team, which I think it is still on them, and it is still on Adjan that we're in this mess. But Tim told them no to a lot of players. So how much can you share the blame around?
Yeah. Well, Bentos here says that Volta is an awful appointment, and I agree, but not the only reason to blame for our position, because the recruitment has been poor, and that gives the players that Volta's got to deal with, and Adjan does need to take responsibility. And until the next manager is appointed, I'm still not 100% convinced, especially with some of the rumours of who it might be, that he is going to get the appointment right, because not only does he need to get it right in terms of his great plan getting to the Premier League, but we need to get someone who can keep us up first, because we're going into a very difficult Christmas period. If we don't get the right manager in quickly, then I don't know whether Dawson will get us a huge amount of wins in the interim. And if we don't get the right manager in quickly who's correct, we're not going to get the wins. We're not going to get the wins over the busy Christmas period, and we could be a bit adrift, because we're 2 points adrift at the moment. I remember a lot of people said that Volta wouldn't last till January, and unfortunately that's been proven true. But this season just gets worse and worse, I think.
Should we talk about who could replace Tim? Because we obviously had the big rumour of Slaviša Jokanovic. That's the big initial rumour.
Yes.
That that's come out. There were, the original odds: Mark Robbins, Ismail Cartel, Van Nistelrooy, and Lampard were on there, even though they were minutes away from taking other jobs.
Van Nistelrooy was never going to drop to the Championship. You just knew someone was going to come for him in the Prem.
After being at Man United for a few matches, of course not. It's going to go straight to the first Premier League job opening there was, I'd say. And who else? Schumacher, of course, that was our exclusive. That Schumacher, 2 weeks ago, it was going to be him.
Well, we said because of the way the odds were, we on Tigers Talk on Wednesday, we read those out, and Paul, as an ex-bookmaker himself, said they're stacked in the bookies' favour. Schumacher at 12-1 might be worth a punt if you know something. But anyway, Jokanovic was the first rumour, wasn't it? And what are our thoughts on that? Will, what do you reckon?
Well, Jokanovic has proven himself at this level. I know he's not had the. I know in recent times his CV hasn't looked the greatest. Obviously, Sheffield United didn't go too great, but he has. City needs someone who has got experience in the Championship and has proven track record in the Championship, and you can't argue with a man who's got two separate clubs promoted from the Championship.
Nice.
I'm not saying he's my favourite choice, but you can't argue with it as an option.
I mean, I think, of course, considering the difficulty we might have where we are in the table and where we are in the table, as in how difficult it might be in January to sign good players, I don't think we're quite as an attractive proposition than we would have been when Vicinha went, because we just finished outside the playoffs. There was more optimism. Maybe we could have had a better summer. But Jokanovic, I think there's the fear that we'd go for someone like an Ismail Kartal, one of Adjan's friends who's just managed in Turkey perhaps and doesn't understand the Championship, just like Volta did. And I wouldn't be too pleased with that considering where we are on the table. And then also someone who's done very well in the Championship because he's been promoted out of the Championship twice and with different clubs, which is impressive to do that at two clubs. He's a bit of both. And so I could understand that appointment, that maybe Adjan would be happy with that. He doesn't want to just go for a Schumacher perhaps or a Robbins. But then also, has managed in the Championship before. So that's not too terrible. It would be a better appointment 2 or 3 years ago because he's had a rough few years. I still like the idea of Schumacher.
It was Dynamo Moscow, which going to Russia post the start of the war is a bold career move, to say the least, and he only lasted a year in the Premier League. Oh no,
I was going to say something, and I'm not getting into politics again. After mentioning earlier with Erdogan, I'm not going to go further than that.
And look, before that, he had a not too good spell at Sheffield United, but like Will said, he does have 2 promotions from the Championship on his CV.
Not everyone's got that.
Not everyone's got that. They were with better teams than ours. 100%. Fulham and Watford were 2 teams with parachutes, I think, at the time.
Nope.
Watford didn't.
That's a wrongly thought thing. They'd both been in the Championship for a few seasons a piece when they brought in Jokanovic.
Yeah. Watford went up and Fulham have gone up and down, but yeah, you're right. That was the sort of beginning of their yo-yo. You're quite right.
Yeah, it was. And he's not one that excites me, but he's one I would be content with coming in. My first choice would absolutely be Mark Robins. I saw a comment earlier on about the rumours that Robins would only take the job if he gets to skip the interview and gets offered it. I think it's Alan Nixon, and you chuck enough of proverbial at the wall, some of it'll stick.
About the same time, my favourite is also Mark Robins, and I would just go for him.
Yeah,
he's the obvious choice, isn't he? If you want to sort of build a project, which is what he's done at Coventry, and he's very experienced. He's not in a job, so you wouldn't have to pay for him. I mean, that comment, how would Alan Nixon know the inner workings? Because I don't really think Mark Robins is going to tell all his staff and his agent, I'm only going to take the whole City job if they don't make me go through.
Nice on the Nathaniel, you've just jinxed it, confirming it's true.
Well, I mean, it's complete tosh. I have seen some people say that actually the whatever his name, the assistant coach that Mark Robins had at Coventry is the only reason why he did well.
What, Adrian Vivac?
Thank you. I mean, again, that's speculation. It's possible, but compared to some of the other options, I think 9 years at any football club is extremely impressive. We're seeing it with Pep Guardiola at the moment. Just because you've got the one bad season at the very end, 8 years of great success is unprecedented in the EFL. Not unprecedented, but most managers get sacked before that. So I wouldn't really, if some people want to say, oh, well, he didn't do so well this season, I wouldn't really mind too much about that. Most managers have been sacked elsewhere. It's just the thing that happens. So
Screw it. Go for Warnock.
Again,
one last dance.
You'd like Bedia.
You're bollock to it.
To be
like
fair, that sort of character would be perfect for what we need at the moment.
For a season, but then of course Adrian isn't thinking, oh, we just need to stay up. He's thinking, maybe not this season, but we want to push at the playoffs, and so to go for someone who's
didn't Adrian
got
say in
promoted
his
before.
Radio Humberside interview that the goal is still playoffs? That's still possible.
Well, it is, because it's a championship. If you win 4 in a row, which is 100% possible with a new manager bounce, then you're probably there. So I understand him wanting to be optimistic. I think he's got to he should probably think, he can think that. He shouldn't really say that, but we know Adrian doesn't really care about what people think of him. He's never answered a question thinking that.
I also love the idea of Adrian and Warnock just absolutely going at it blur for blur. Because they would not get on. They wouldn't, to be fair.
Yeah, well, as Bentos puts in, Adrian working with Neil Warnock would be a sight to behold.
It'd be hilarious.
Scott's comment there of I think
Adrian
scared English manager because Rosie got too much power at the club. I think that was one of the reasons Rosie left to wrestle that power back. I think it's because it's an interesting point that Scott makes there, because I think Rosie had a lot of respect because he spoke well, the fans liked him, the players liked him. So thus he had that rapport and he had that power. And surely you want a manager to have that good rapport with players.
Yeah.
And it's completely counterproductive, counterintuitive to sack him. But we don't know what goes on inside Adrian's head. We know so clearly now that we don't know his next move. So, Tiger Door put in chat there, carnage, and my head would hurt. My head does hurt. And
mind you, Warnock at the end of his career coming in to save us from relegation, he wouldn't have any sort of input on transfers. Adrian might like that. I don't know whether Warnock would think, oh, yeah,
no, you're wrong there. He'd ask for Paddy Kenny as goalkeeper.
Well, yeah, I guess he would, but...
Where's Big Sam?
Yeah. We don't want to become a Watford and just keep sacking managers, so he's got to think long-term. He wants
we
to get
could have
someone...
thought long-term with keeping Rosinha on, and we did that by giving it however many years deal we gave him 12 months ago, and then Adrian just ripped it up. So... we had long-term thinking, and Adrian decided, short-termism. And short-termism has had us, it's pulled our pants down. And look where we are.
You should not have sacked Rosinha. Although we got lots of lovely views, a record view count on that emergency podcast. Other than that, there was no benefit to Rosinha being sacked. And, the players we were able to attract in the transfer window, we signed a lot of them because they... Yeah,
the football wasn't incredible, but it was the start of... He'd only just started his career. He would adapt and grow as he went on.
It was his first full season, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We had a goalkeeper that didn't have any arms, and we had strikers that were injured for half the time, and we finished 7th, which is pretty good. And the refs completely did us in. I mean,
you can't use that excuse. You can't use that excuse for Rosinha. You can for Tim, but you can't use it for Rosinha. You can't use injuries for Rosinha either, because forget that Liam Delap was out for 4 months, and that could have had us in the playoffs. Forget we were missing Philogene for 6 to 8 weeks. It don't matter. But Tim, Stephen Alzati and Kyle Rushworth are injured, who've not played a minute between them. Oh, shiver me timbers! Keep him in a job another 6 months.
This is an interesting question. Sorry. Bento says, can you ever see us being promoted to the Premier League if we continue with the current approach with managers and players?
No.
Not really.
No.
It's an owner who changed his mind on the flick of a switch.
Exactly. And you need to sort of build on a promising season with Rossini rather than just, well, that hasn't worked and thus it will never work. Let's try something different, because like Watford, they kept sacking their manager, but it worked for them because they kept going up and down and they were in the Premier League for a long time. But when you're in the Championship, you're probably going to get relegated at some point doing this, and that's where we are this season. Yeah. Tyneside Tiger, we need an element of short-termism because the overriding priority is not to go down. That's why I'd like Robbins. Who is the number one choice at the moment? Because I probably have to lean towards Robbins.
Mine is Robbins.
Kanovich.
I get the feeling the general consensus is mostly Robbins.
I think we'll end up with Steven Schumacher, personally.
I think we'll end up with Chris Hughton.
Well, that's 2-1 on
Chris
the
Hughton's finished. Chris Hughton as a director of football, fine. But
I can't believe that name's come up, to be quite honest.
He's the current Ghana manager. It's insane, to be honest. I mean, all the odds are, that's not the actual odds, is it? That's just what people bet on. And people are stupid. Sorry, people listening, but we are.
Well,
people like Copeland voted for the Nazis. You can't trust people.
Well, yeah, we didn't have to go that far, but yeah.
Politics. Lee mentioned Steve Bruce in chat, and I just sort of like to say that in the summer, getting Steve Bruce in to work alongside Tan as heading up the brain team and the director of football would have been perfect. But he's at Blackpool now. He's in work.
I don't know, because the last time he had an owner who was being very awkward with him in terms of transfers, that went real well.
Yeah.
As in Bruce got out before he was pushed.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
He'd walk in, see it's happening again, and then just walk out.
Yeah, he knows too well. Plus, he's finished as well.
That scene with the in The Simpsons where he takes his hat off and then puts it back on straight out. That's Steve Bruce if he sees what's going on at the minute. But like I say, you don't tarnish what he's got. He left on a high, getting us promoted to the Premier League, and he's regarded as a club legend. Don't drag him back now to be manager when it's a totally different ethos. Adrian doesn't want Steve Bruce ball. He wants possession-based, attractive, this kind of thing. Leave Steve Bruce and Steve Agnew where they are at Blackpool and keep them managing Matthew Pennington. That's fine.
Yeah. Matthew Pennington. Honestly. Yeah. I don't mind the idea of Schumacher because he got sacked by Stoke, but I don't understand why. I think it's rare to find a manager who's out of a job that hadn't done badly at their previous club and he hadn't done. And that was the first name mentioned.
Robbins and Schumacher, who've done well at their previous clubs and been sacked for whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, mind you, of course, Robbins, Coventry spent a lot of money. They were below us at the time, so I could understand that. But it's still, a little bit early. It's a little early in the season to do that. You do that maybe, okay, we'll move you on in March, April, perhaps. But you give him an opportunity to right the wrongs because, they weren't even in the relegation zone, I don't think. Yeah. Tiger Store, Adrian doesn't want anyone more popular than himself. Possibly.
True.
Quite possibly.
Bentos says, what's their old bullet up to? That's
Funnily enough, his name has come up.
In Turkish press, exactly.
Yeah. What a surprise.
NSHEP, the brain team. So, it's made up of, well, it was initially Adrian at the top.
Leonardo, Michelangelo.
It was initially Adrian at the top, Tan, Berry Pardo, Lee Darnborough as head of recruitment.
Ronnie Pickett.
Mertan Adjel, Mustafa Yokes.
Donatello.
and then the scouting network headed up by Stuart White, the chief scout.
Who haven't we
and what have you.
mentioned?
Pardon?
Donatello? Did we
Raphael.
mention- Raphael, thank you. All the
we go.
turtles.
And just
Southgate.
say Kylian and Mbappe next, for goodness sake.
We're
then-
mocking the brain team. We don't like the brain team, John. We don't
True.
like them.
With well,
Oppenheimer.
then with Tan leaving and Lee Darnborough leaving, it is now Berry, Mustafa, Mertan, Jared Dublin,
John
as
Paul,
sporting
George, and
director.
Ringo.
And it's no one really knows what they do, but they supposedly do something, and Adjun quite likes them. But as Bentos says, the Tiger Leisure staff and me could do that job.
Yeah, could do a better.
The Teletubbies.
Yeah,
It's
they
just
don't
the
even
fact
get
Adjun
names.
called them his brain team. It's
You
like,
set yourself up for failure, don't you?
like, could you not call them your recruitment team?
No one would really discuss it if it was a recruitment team, because every club's got a recruitment team. But calling them
Yeah.
a brain team implies a sort of higher level of thinking. Oh, I've got a brain team. No other club has a brain team because they're not
God
stupid enough to
status,
call
isn't
it
it?
that.
They're being deified by being called a brain team.
They have. They really have.
Bentos says the rule would just include saying yes a lot, which is apt. It really is quite apt.
Yes, yes, my lord. Yeah.
Back to the manager watch. Paul asked about Gareth Southgate.
He'd keep us up.
Would
Probably
he?
5 at the back.
Hey,
He's already said he's not. He's probably going to move out of football management, hasn't he? So
I can understand that.
I'd love to.
even as unlikely as it was, I don't think it's a chance.
I'd love to turn up at Nationwide and Gareth Southgate just be sat on the other side of the desk.
I think there's probably something in between being the England manager and working at Nationwide.
Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut, yes. Yes. Let's not name every company. That'd be good.
No, he's not. He's already got history with pizza. He'll be all right.
Has he? Oh, yes,
Do you
he
not remember
has.
the pizza advert?
Yes, he has. You're quite right. Lee says Pep Guardiola. I mean,
I don't know. He's in a pretty rough go of it at the moment. I don't know if he'd be well any good.
oh, well, they've been sacked by his last club, so clearly he's done a bad job. He wouldn't want him. I mean, yeah, interesting what's happening at Man City. I think basically we don't really know. There's a bunch of names. I don't really. I'm not sure I'm too happy about Jukanovic myself.
Give it Nick Barmby.
Well,
Yeah.
of course we have to see how well Andy Dawson does. But shall we talk about the Middlesbrough match? Of course.
Just realised we haven't talked about the game that happened yesterday.
Well, we lost to Middlesbrough.
40 minutes.
Yeah, 3-1. Burstow got his first goal. I thought the second half, when the subs came on, we did a bit better. But defensively, perhaps the second worst defensive performance of the season behind Norwich, although pretty similar. I thought. I don't want. I always say I don't like criticising players, but McLaughlin. I'm not going to say. You've said it for me. I got away with it. Did he? I didn't notice. It was
Both
crap.
him and Jones were just caught asleep so many times.
Yeah, McLaughlin can't run. Bless him. Just like Christie, I feel like he's dropped off a cliff at a certain point, and he's dropped off a cliff this season. Yeah, I mean, it could have been 4, 5, 6.
It could have been, and under Tim Walter, I have no doubt it would have been 5, 6, 7, and
8,
9,
9, 10. But it felt like the players had more confidence, more fight, more desire. And if we can build on that, because Burstow said training's been a lot different this week, and he said the boys are sticking together. I think there's obviously Charlie Hughes. If he's back in,
Well, he will be. He managed to
he
get back. He managed to just get himself a permanent starting 11 place by not playing.
100%. 100%.
And then there's the striker debate. I don't think Pedro's bad at all. He's got a good footballing brain, but he almost needs to be half a yard offside when he makes the right runs because his body won't let him do it.
He's not cooking up, is he?
He got the right run, and Borges should have been sent off for that. Goes down on the edge of the D. Obviously, the ref wouldn't pull it back to the halfway line where the foul starts, but it's still a foul, and it's still denying a clear goal-scoring opportunity. So
100%.
if Borges gets sent off there, it's a different game.
The linesman bottled it because the linesman's got a clear
bottle
view. You cannot grab someone's shirt like that. And, the commentators, was it Curtis Davis or someone said, oh, well, maybe the reason why they didn't give it was because, Pedro's gone down once the goalkeeper's got to the ball. He's gone down because...
He's going down, yeah.
Because
He'd
he's
have
not...
got to the ball had he not been pulled back in the first place.
Yes, thank you.
And there were so many more refereeing inconsistencies than just that. Like Xavi does a much weaker version of that on the halfway line, and the referee blows up straight away. You can't exactly blame the referee for the Pedro one because the angle he's at, he won't be able to see it. But the linesman, that's all on whoever that linesman was. And
Quite right.
like I say, the striker issue is interesting. Like you can obviously shout about putting two up front, and it is an idea. I'd start Burstow up front.
Yeah. He scored, but even if he hadn't scored, he showed more nice touches and got involved in the game more than Pedro.
Yeah, he showed a lot of belief,
on the
definitely.
Wing, so a bit easier. And clearly, I think it's a burden off his back. Volta gone, so yeah, I'd like to see him start against Blackburn.
It says a lot that it always says something when a second half sub in a loss is the man of the match, really.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm still not sure about Chris Badia. People shouting for him to start because he's an assist type striker and hold the ball up. Yeah, but Pedro can do that.
How about just play all three of them?
Chaos ball.
Yeah, you could do 4-4-2 with Burstow on the wing and Kamara on the other wing.
No.
I mean, you wouldn't want to, but you could.
I mean, you're hearing something there first. You're hearing him drop Longman. You're hearing Nathaniel drop Longman.
I can't drop Longman. He didn't start. I mean, mind you, I think Volta should have been sacked for continuing to play Kamara on the left wing. Dawson did the same. I still don't understand it. Amr did get involved more, but he wants to drift into the middle anyway. So just have Kamara on his preferred wing. He did well for the goal, but maybe if he's on the other wing, he's scoring goals and we're not losing.
All his reputation comes from his play down the right wing.
So play him on the right. It's not rocket science, is it?
No, give him a go.
That moment in the Wednesday game when I realised that even though Longman and Kamara were the ones on the pitch, he was still playing Longman on the right and Kamara on the left. I was like, yeah, I think we're in trouble.
Oh, I've just put the comment down. Betty Sharp scored 2 against National League, or was it even 6th Division Kettering? Decent option for January? No. Don't even joke about that.
He's in good form.
That's offensive. Betty Sharp.
No, we've got Billy Clark already. He was in the dugout the other day.
Yes, we do. I thought Palmer did infinitely more than Malem would have done. He went past some people. He had some shots.
Surely Malem goes in January. Surely.
Well, Volta's not here. There's no excuse to keep him anymore. Unless he can, because I think we actually had a midfield yesterday. We actually, had the ball in the midfield. Palmer had it. So maybe Malem would be more involved if we have a midfield. But Giles, I thought, had a bit of promise coming off the bench, possibly. Especially with Drame. He performed quite poorly.
I mean,
I could see
the way Drame played, I think it would have been hard for him to be
better onto Dawson. Yes. Do we want to sort of build a lineup for next week? Who we think it could be?
Yeah, you haven't built one.
No, I haven't. Well, we didn't win. I think I said if we beat Sheffield Wednesday, I'll do a combined lineup, but we didn't. So no,
Well-
I still haven't got one.
Look, I still think it's plausible Giles goes. Amir might go. Cynic should go, but won't go. Malum, perhaps. There's an argument for Badia, Puerta, Rushworth, Burns, and Zambrano all being sent back.
I think Puerta's been okay. I'd keep Puerta.
I think the Zambrano one's confusing for me because the suggestion is the club will stick by him regardless, but
they won't.
What's he going to do for 16 months?
Well, they can't, because even if he's stays, by the time his ban ends, he won't be our player anymore. We'd have to sign him on a permanent deal, so it's not happening.
I genuinely could see us signing him on a permanent deal through his ban and then just paying his wages for however long. But
nonsense. I would be edging out if he started to buy players that we can't.
I was going to say, if you're going to get players who have been doping banned, get Pogba in. He's free in January.
Yeah. If we go down to League One, and we could have signed a number 6 in January, and we choose not to for Zambrano, who's been banned for breaking the rules.
But we've still got Steven Alzate, who's not played.
You can't rely on him to play if he's injured, though, right?
Well, the first time we didn't see him was because he was getting up to fitness, and then this time he picked up a little calf injury in training. So, Uriel Felly, oh my god!
I still don't believe he's real. I still think he's an AI.
Well, yeah. I was talking to someone about this the other day, and I don't think Tim Walter even knew who he was. And I thought,
no one knows who he is. He's not a real person.
He has scored a goal, only one, over at whoever on earth he's playing.
Universitario. It took, because he was on FIFA, but anyone can be on FIFA. You can just create anybody. So it took someone at City telling me that they'd had a phone call with his agent to convince me that it was real.
That's still not convincing.
He's not even good. Like, he's got one goal in 23 games. Like, he's 22. He's supposed to be an attacking player. Like, how much is he worth? Like, nothing?
Well, he's 66 rated on FIFA, so let's get him in.
He has scored for me on FIFA, to be fair. Carabao Cup.
What's he look like?
I don't know. On FOTMOB,
no photos exist of him, so
on the app I've got, I'll try and show my camera. But look, that's his image. There isn't one. There isn't an image. Not even an AI one.
Told you this lad, he don't exist.
The only player I've seen commented so far that disagree that we should sell is Kyle.
Absolutely.
Kyle's been okay.
Get in there. Uriel Felly's got 4-star skill moves.
Wow. Not bad.
Get him in. He's valued on FIFA career mode at £1 million.
Yeah, I mean, it helps with FFP, doesn't it? If you can sell him on FIFA. I think basically we don't know what's happening with that transfer. Very strange one.
Has it right. Real or not, he isn't going to be anywhere near Hull at any point during his contract.
Correct.
And that expires in June.
Wow. Yeah.
With no optional extension year.
I mean, considering that we're probably spending more money on Cynic than Chelly, which one do you think is the worst or weirdest
Best value
signing?
for money is definitely Dokan Cynic, because he's on 30 grand a week and he's played 13 games. He's played more minutes out on loan from Hull City during his time at Hull City than he has for Hull City.
It's completely correct. It's absolutely cynic.
But at least he exists, right? At least he's not some AI bot.
There is the.
You've got to give it to him. He had a shot last season. He had a shot on goal for Hull City last season. That happened. It's from the halfway line, but they all count. Chelly hasn't. I don't even know how to pronounce his name.
Here. Was Bora Eidenlek really a footballer? Another weird one. Hey, Bora was a nice.
We know
bloke.
he was a real person because we saw him in the flesh.
Yeah, he scored for the under-21.
We've seen him.
I have met Dokan Sidic and Bora Eidenlek. I haven't met Yuri Humfeli. So I know at least 2/3 of them are real, and Feli's not one of them in the 2/3.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, we lost to Middlesbrough. It wasn't great. We've got Blackburn next week. That is a massive game. They're in pretty good form.
They've just beat Borough and Leeds. Just good time to play them.
Precisely. The Shambles derby. Do we think we'll have a new manager in charge by the time Blackburn game comes around? Because I don't think so. I think it might be the week after.
No comment.
Ooh. So that's...
I think it's going to be... I think the manager's first game will be...
Well, if it's Robbins, he doesn't need an interview. That can be tomorrow. Sorry,
please.
Get him in. Get him in. Get him in.
Yeah. Sorry,
maybe get Chelly to do the crossbar challenge for the fans to meet him.
Hey, that was one thing, I suppose. We had our closest attempt so far at Wednesday.
Yeah.
Bring back Rory fighting the Marines or those massive, horrendous, statue things he had back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Well,
Joe, do you think we'll have any manager?
No, not by Blackburn.
No. Well, that's optimistic. We've not. I think we have been doing score predictions. Well, we've not actually had you on for a little while. Are you?
Well, you can just assume that I was going to say 3-0 for every single one, can't you? So it's all right. So, in other words, it wouldn't have been going well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Are you going 3-0 against Blackburn?
Absolutely. Of course I am.
I find
new era.
It's not a new era though, is it? He was the manager 2 years ago, Dawson.
New era though, isn't it?
He's already been the manager.
Come on.
It's his second game as well. Tyneside Tiger says City 0, Blackburn 2. Yeah. Joe, do you think
what Tyneside Tiger said 2-0
Maybe a hat trick.
hat trick for who? Hat trick for who? Malem. I'm gonna go.
What, you leaving? I don't blame you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave. Let's go 1-0. Let's go 1-0 City win. We're gonna get that second clean sheet of the season. Late winner. Malem off the bench. He's gonna prove us all wrong. He's gonna score.
He's gonna have a shot deflect wildly in it with off target initially.
Bloody take that.
Absolutely.
I would take a 2-yard tapping off Xavi Simon's arse if it meant we won a game.
Probably be the only way he can score because this finish.
No, he only scores bangers.
He's got a weldy 2 weeks ago.
He only scores bangers, that lad.
He's had some. He's hit the bar twice, or he hit the post against Sheffield Wednesday. He's hit the bar against West Brom. He missed that sitter against Portsmouth. He's not really a proper goal scorer, is he? But he has scored some good ones.
Well, he gets closer from 25 yards out than Seri does because he always ballooned it into the control room at the top of the North Stand.
It's very scary that, considering the chances Simon's missed and that he's hit the post or the woodwork twice, that he could easily be our top goal scorer by a few goals, being a defensive midfielder that barely played for us before the season. It's very concerning, really, isn't it? Okay, well, maybe... Okay, I'll go Xavi Simon's 1-0 win.
They might put a lump. I might lump.
Yeah, considering he hasn't even been playing.
50 quid on Simons to win the season as our top scorer.
Yeah,
which
I mean,
genuinely probably isn't a stupid bet.
it's not honestly, is it?
All bets are stupid.
Well,
Yeah, true.
yeah. If I could bet money on Cynic not scoring a goal for Hull, I'd bet every pound I have.
Well, yeah,
Well,
but
it's
the
a
odds would be
shame.
1-1.
Didn't you hear? He's recovered from his injury. He's starting the next game.
Oh no! Yeah, but it doesn't matter because he'll get injured within
He'll
5
get injured in the
seconds.
warm-up.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway, we're rambling now. I think we should leave it there.
let's wrap this up. Will,
Christmas
Joe,
fun.
thanks for. Oh yes, Merry Christmas,
Isn't it?
everyone, and Happy Holidays
What
to people celebrate.
the?
I know we're a few weeks off, but it's the 1st of
Happy
December.
Kwanzaa.
Quite right. Yeah. Yeah. But bye, I guess. I haven't really got anything nice to say, so we'll see you next week. Although I've
Auf
got to do
Wiedersehen, Tim. Thanks for the memories.
Auf Wiedersehen,
What
Tim.
memories?
Quite right.